Looks like he's got like a little bit of a sediment coat.
That's what
settled.
I was thinking.
Were you thinking the same thing?
Yeah, maybe he's been sitting there so long he's
been there
getting sedimented. He's going to become a rock over time.
Yeah, any more zoom video?
It's great. I don't know if Ken Sulak is joining us today and can help point us in the right direction about a species. This looks different than the Lophioides barrow that we saw yesterday, although the general shape of the animal is similar, but this one looks a bit smaller for one thing, and you can see another squat lobster on the rock to the lower left of the fish.
All right, we'll keep moving.
I love that look of like just the two big arms hanging down out of the burrow in the rock.
Yeah, we'll probably could turn the lasers back on for a second.
Lasers coming on.
Just wanted to see him compared to this fish. There you go.
Oh yeah, so he might be maybe approaching 20 centimeters total length.
All right.
ROV now
Another
fresh.
grenadier
Move
or
this
rat
away.
tail.
That one looks a little bit bigger, maybe.
I was actually thinking a lot of them seem, it's probably just the species here compared to what I'm used to. A lot of them look small or like juveniles to me, but maybe it's just a small species.
I think that the Nezumia are generally quite small.
Oh, okay. And that's one of the common ones you've been seeing, right?
Yeah, Pat, it's going to sonar. You might have some larger rocks approaching,
Copy
which looks like the one straight ahead.
And the geologist leans in.
Yes, trying to get a look before everyone else can see it. Get a sense of that crust on the sediments in the foreground and see stripes of it.
Yeah.
Slightly different layers. And we get these larger rock.
Is that a crab on the rock there?
Yeah,
Looks
video.
like
We
it.
can zoom on crab here.
Oh, that looks like maybe another Neolithodes or some kind of lithodid crab.
Got some
The
serious
type we saw on one of the
defense there.
corals a few
Right.
days ago.
This one looks a little larger, but still very spiky, like the other one that we saw.
You can see how the rock has been used by organisms burrowing into it.
What's the lighter thing right behind the
It
crab?
looks like a squat lobster also.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Or maybe he's molting. It looks kind of...
Yeah, it looks kind of in a strange position.
Yeah. So these lithodid crabs, if you've ever had king crab legs, that's a relative of these lithodid crabs. And they're also anamurans, so they're decapod crustaceans. They do have 5 pairs of legs, but again, we only see 4, and the last pair is modified.
Lots of those hydroids along,
Yeah,
along the rock.
those are the feathery organisms behind the crab.
Yeah, Pat, looks like we're getting some stronger returns. Maybe
Yeah, I think
about
maybe that is a
20
molt.
meters out.
Video snap.
Just left
Copy that.
behind.
Ship stop though, but I might dial down ship move.
Or it might be in
lengths
the
to 20
process.
meters
I'm
to see what's in
not
it.
Oh,
sure.
maybe it
I
is
agree.
in the
So when these crabs grow, they will start to develop another shell underneath their present shell, and then they'll eventually just pull out of the former shell, and the new shell will harden up. In that interim, they're quite vulnerable because they're a lot more squishy than they are when they have a hard shell.
Yeah, like a snake shedding its skin. Kind of.
Or a soft-shelled crab.
Yeah, soft-shell
Yeah.
crab is exactly that.
Yeah.
It's just molted. Oh.
Yeah,
Big crab behind, like in the,
Oh,
in the
yes.
background.
Oh yeah, another
on
chaseon in the
another
background.
ledge. And we might be seeing some of the climb in the distance. We might start.
Oh, two
These
Chasey
large blocks might be indicating that we're finally at the base of the scarp, and what we're looking at here looks like that as well.
It looks like we have 2 Chasey golden crabs and another Bathypathes black coral, maybe.
Might be another male and female.
On the right.
As it says
Mhm.
out.
These big boulders relative to all the
ready
little
for
stuff we've
20
seen
meters?
in terms of the rocks.
Copy
So
that.
probably
Great.
Oh,
Keep
he's
saying
having a
this is-
meal.
I was wondering what the
and heading.
bright white was.
these
Looks like
rocks have
he
been
might have-
detached.
He might have found a
Molt of another crab.
molt, or maybe even just
The
Or
soft-shelled crab.
Yeah,
taken a
yeah, that would
crab.
make more
Yeah.
sense.
Oops. Instead of a branchidial
Somebody-
right into him. Maybe he'll have 2 meals here.
Interspecies interaction.
I'm ready.
And that's a little bit of cannibalism happening right there.
You
Crab
think
eating.
so? It looks like a.
Doesn't look like the same species. It
Oh,
looks
no,
like-
no,
yeah.
but crab eating crab.
Oh yeah, looks
that-
like more like a like
Lithoided.
the lithoided.
Yeah.
And I was suggesting the other crab to the left was the female, significantly smaller.
I'm not sure if
Or if
that's
you're
the
not ready to
case
move
with
the
these or whether it's reversed. In some crustaceans,
That's
the bigger
true,
one
yeah.
is the female.
Yeah, I was trying to look that up because we captured 2 on
Come
the
in.
Charleston Bump expedition.
Might be able to
And,
tell on this one because
they were in the
that one
process
does
of
look like a
mating.
female because the underside is really wide.
Yep.
Mhm.
Yeah, the abdomen of females are wide, and the males have a very thin abdomen, which is the part that's tucked up underneath. She's very defensive.
Or offensive, actually.
Yeah,
Coming
that's-
at us.
That's right.
She's taking on D2, which is, I don't know how many thousand times bigger than her, maybe? Can see some gooseneck barnacles on her carapace and
Oh,
legs.
I'll fire up that still, Cameron.
Coming on with still. And still is coming off.
I'll turn on those fog lights to see if it.
Fog lights are coming on now.
I think this crab wants a piece of this.
Yep. She's not backing down.
It's because the other crab stole the meal, and this one's like,
I suspect she knows she's going to get part of that meal. Or she'll make sure of it.
Oh, you
You
have
can see
another
the
little
arms of
crab.
another little squat lobster in the burrow right behind her.
All right.
Wow.
I like
Still
the
camera coming
barnacles growing
I'll let
in
it
between
walk out
the
of frame below me here.
sections of the leg are really cool.
I guess this means that she hasn't molted in a long time.
I would
because
guess
the
that is
barnacles
case.
would be shed with that carapace and skeleton, external skeleton.
Which seems like a potentially bad place to settle.
All right.
I guess it's good for a while.
the
You get
schedule.
to get transported around.
Fog lights coming off.
All right.
There's the
And
squat
squat
lobster.
lobster. And we're starting to see some of these larger rocks that are not the encrusted sediments
down
of
to it,
the
7.5.
broader seafloor. So we're
Sounds good. I'll
nearing
keep going.
the vertical rise. These rocks have tumbled down. Most likely they're not in place or in situ, which is we hope to find rocks that represent the oldest layer of sediment. So we don't want to trust these that have rolled down the slope. They're probably from shallower and therefore younger layers of rock. See a nice anemone there.
Following you up with the camera as you come up.
Sounds
And it
great.
looks like we have more relief coming up in front of us. We're now at 995 meters depth.
Got you there at 50
And we're calling this site
degrees.
Richardson Scarp.
Curious what this skeleton looking, just something dead that just landed here. Video snap in. Remains of something.
Oh, it's a fishing net, or from a trap or a net. Our first marine debris of the day.
All right, video. Pilot's clear.
Well, at least it's acting as habitat for some hydroids and probably many other things that we can't see.
Could probably get a move in.
Say that again?
You could probably get a move in, I think, if we're ready.
I think the ship's actually just ending a move.
Oh, okay. Understood.
Yeah, I put one in about 3 minutes ago.
Oh, okay.
I can get another
We
one
haven't
if you
seen
want,
much coral rubble today.
ROV nav bridge, move complete.
A beautiful
though. Yeah,
sponge
set move
here.
just finished.
Okay.
We could probably
Hexagonal
just keep
glass
going.
sponge, it looks like.
Yeah.
I'm going to zoom in of the rock here, and
Yeah,
especially where
video,
it's
we can
broken
frame this
away.
up. Zoom in on partial.
We are
This rock
approaching
does look
on
different.
sonar, though. There's definitely a
Yeah,
change.
it's
like
very
a-
different.
That
Before we put
looks
another move in, just a quick
interesting rock
glance up,
formation.
just to make sure there's
Yeah.
nothing too extreme.
Looks like it broke off right there, right?
Yeah,
And fell down.
that might be. And underneath it, you can see where worms have burrowed in that underlying layer, too. And this
Journey.
almost looks like it's been affected by strong currents, with making undulating rock bed. It's very smooth.
Could you come out a little bit? Yeah.
Scott Harris noticed the layering, what we call laminae, the very finely parallel markings.
Another squat lobster on top left.
Definitely been shaped by current flow when it was being formed, when the sediments were being deposited. That's interesting. And can we put the laser on, please, so we
Yeah.
can get a sense?
That might be the Afrocalistes
Laser's
sponge
coming
there.
on.
Here's lasers on that geology here.
Just have a fish or an eel back there.
Yeah.
We might be able to grab that little piece and put it in the same box.
Yeah, that seems like a good target.
Did you want to sample?
Yeah, pilot,
this?
if we can just grab that piece that's fallen off. It definitely looks like part of
Could you
the
come wide?
substrate. Scott Harris and Jason Chater agree that looks like current scour.
Yeah, that rock is bigger than I thought when we first looked at it. Not huge, but
Got hydraulics up.
Hydraulics are ramped up and ready to go.
Watch, did I hear you say you wanted it in the same box as the last specimen? Or?
Yes, that would be fine.
All right.
Gonna go ahead and take over Mini Zeus and put him on my screen.
Yeah. Thanks.
And you can see from the underlying rock that is well back in the cave-like overhang area, that is highly bored by organisms, whereas this is a little more solid and is
All
not
right.
conducive
Bring the
for
far
burrowing.
Wing inboard.
The organisms that burrow into
Yeah.
these rocks are able
Okay.
to use their digestive juices to help dissolve
And Cooper, we had a
the
chance
mineral
to
matter
rotate
that is
seriously.
gluing the
Well,
sediments
bring it
together,
down.
and therefore
Awesome.
they can dig a hole, but looks like that's not quite as easy to do on these
The
rocks.
ship is moving, correct?
Ship stopped about, let's see, 3 minutes ago.
All right, I'll hold you there at 90 degrees.
So you should be settled, but you might move a little.
Scott Harris
Drop it.
noticed
Wing inboard a
that
little
it is
bit
reminiscent of
Good.
differential
Wing coming
erosion in
inboard.
the Badlands out west.
I was thinking something
Yeah,
similar.
yeah,
Actually.
you
It's like,
see
it reminds
these
me of all those
rocks.
national parks out there.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Is that gonna fit in the same
There it's
barrel
from
box?
wind-blown sediments,
Let's see.
or wind-blown scouring and erosion, blasting like sandpaper against the softer rocks.
Ooh,
Okay.
might be bigger than you think. It's connected already.
Yeah, we'll see how big it is. Might be brittle too.
I'd be surprised if it's brittle,
Okay.
based on just how it's fallen and the other rocks in the area, or in the view.
This looks like a good grabbing point here. Gently squeeze in there.
It's a lovely rock.
It is a lovely rock.
All right, put it in the same box there.
Coming down.
And Eric Cortez from Temple University said that this rock reminds him of the transition from seamount to coral carbonate cap that they saw in the atolls in the Pacific.
What do you think, Sean? Leave the door open a little bit, or door starboard?
I mean, I don't think it'll close,
Yeah.
but
Yes,
It
it's
might-
either
the
a very
springs might hold it down.
fine-grained carbonate
Just have to tell
rock,
'em.
or as Irv Garrison has also
just stick it in
noticed,
the-
it might
Yeah.
actually be a
starboard-
chert bed,
starboard
which
wing.
would
for a reason.
be
Watch
part.
it. We're going to put it in the starboard box just as
Okay,
there's
that-
not room. And
That's great. Yeah, it's bigger than we
Following
thought.
you over.
Had an extra piece to it.
could wing in a little bit.
Starboard wing coming inboard. You clear.
Be interesting if this were a chert bed.
Yeah, I'm
Chert
above it.
is siliceous material, silica rich, and it is formed by the microfossil
inboard.
remains of, or the hard part remains of very, very small organisms. You may have heard of them, of diatoms and radiolaria. And instead of secreting a calcium carbonate test or skeletal material, they use silica from the ocean water
Starboard wing going
and
outboard.
Great.
make their tests using that. And water is incorporated in the
And,
crystalline lattice.
Want me to close that?
Do you think I can close it if I
And
go fast enough with the
We call it
port?
opaline
grab it.
silica. Pilot, could we take a quick zoom into the under portion of that ledge where
Yeah. Just a minute here as I close my
where it
lid.
overhangs?
Okay, port wing going outboard.
Thank you, co-pilot.
Nice collection, pilot.
Nice.
Wings are stowed, ramping down.
All right, video, you can come in. I think they wanted to see underneath here.
Roger that, Nev. Thanks.
Is this what you wanted to see, Watchley?
Well, we definitely want to look at that, but then if we could pan over to the left and look under this ledge.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is very different from anything we've seen on our dives to date.
Wonder if that's a little polychaete tube underneath there.
Yeah, definitely looks
Sedimented.
like it. Yeah, incorporated the sediments. And
You can
All
see the
right.
undulation of the rock layer above, indicating the scouring effect as it was being deposited.
You can come out a little bit, video.
Where
Yeah,
are those tubes?
to that area to the
Yeah.
left where it's very different.
It looks more bored.
Yes, so that's likely more of a calcareous sediment.
A little jelly.
And the matrix of that calcareous material is a little easier for organisms to dissolve to be able to burrow into it.
Get you another side of this here. Just a second.
The shrimp trying
Yeah,
to
there's
hang
a great
on there.
spot right there. Thank you.
Come in quick video. I think my dust cloud is going to hit it pretty soon, so.
It's like cliff dwellings.
You can come out a little bit, video. As that clears. There it goes. All right. With my toe, kick that up. Come back in.
It's a crinoid hanging on the left, hanging from above, and a couple others in below. You can see how fine-grained the sediments are with occasional pteropod shells lying on the top. Trying to calm down Stephanie over here. It's hard to see any of the structures that were original to the rock because of all this bioturbation, the burrowing into the rock itself. Great habitat for those organisms. Nice and protected. Wouldn't be surprised if a fish also lived in there. Not
All
in the
right,
holes.
video.
That's great, thank you.
Come wide. Keep moving here.
Can we get the lasers on? Just there we go, thanks.
Yeah.
All right.
It looks like we might have some coral rubble here that we're picking up now. And I wonder if that's another one of these carnivorous sponges in the center.
Video snap for a dinner. Yeah. This
Yep,
one has
looks
more-
like it.
The same one.
Has more balls on it.
Nice.
Okay, video come wide. I think I saw a grumpy fish up here. There it is.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Is that
Yeah,
Chonex?
Chonex.
You'd snap if you would like.
That would be my guess.
yeah, we've seen this before, or one similar, one relative of it.
I think these ones look grumpier than the other one we saw.
This is like the very first one we saw, perhaps. I have no idea what dive that was at this point.
Yeah, it was a while ago.
Yes,
A couple
it
days
was.
anyway. We can definitely see the coral rubble that's starting to pick up here now.
You can see his modified fins. He actually walks along the seabed with that, with those fins. Very entertaining when they're in motion. Well, if that rock we just picked up is in fact a chert because it's made of different materials, it's a little indicator of climate change, or maybe not climate change. It's different. It's an indicator of differences in the Gulf Stream. Where we see those silica-rich organisms, we typically see them in upwelling environments where nutrient-rich and cold waters reach the surface. And those organisms become very abundant in situations of high productivity. And they tend to dominate the seabed sediments because they are plentiful then and they bury rapidly, and that prevents them from being dissolved. So they typically are an indicator of high productivity in the surface waters when we find them in the sediment and rock record. Otherwise, if it's low productivity, they still exist, but not in such great abundances that they deposit in enough volume to be buried rapidly. That rapid burial removes them from the influences of the seawater that tends to dissolve the silica-rich shell material. The calcareous shell material is more resistant to erosion in shallow waters like this. In the very deep sea, even the calcareous material will dissolve. So when we see layers of siliceous ooze or cherts, which are solidified or lithified siliceous ooze. That tells us that there have been changes in the overlying water in that we had a period of high productivity. So that would be significant if we find that that is in fact a chert.
Video, let's zoom in partial right here. See a couple things here.
Looks like an anthomastus, and then another octocoral in front of that.
Is that a plumerella, or is it different?
It might be a plumerella. It looks like the one to the left of that is a plumerella.
Oh, okay.
It's a little bit bigger of a feather shape than the ones we've been
that's
seeing.
true,
But
actually.
oh, and there's another one of the
And then
carnivorous sponges in the background. I'm not sure if that's pseudoanthomastus again or anthomastus. We've seen both on and off during our dives. It's the red octocoral.
Okay. Pilot's clear and video's clear.
We usually wait to hear from Tina Molotova, so hopefully she'll let us know based on that zoom. Earlier we saw the pseudo anthomastus,
Right.
correct? Yes.
Confirmed by Tina. Oh, we
Come
haven't
in.
seen that glass sponge yet today,
Clear and video.
but we did see it yesterday. And this is the type that often has a pair of shrimp that live in it for life, a mated pair. And they're actually stenopid shrimp. So if you're familiar with the banded coral shrimp, which is common on tropical coral reefs, these guys that live inside these sponges are relatives of the stenopid shrimps.
All right, thanks, video. Keep moving up. If I call a move in.
So yeah,
You think we could get a move underway?
yeah. You guys good for another 20 meters?
Yeah.
Good for another 20.
For our viewing audience, we are located about 190 miles off of Charleston, South Carolina's coast, along the southeast U.S.
Go ahead,
continental margin. And we're currently at a water depth of
963.
963. We began at a depth just over 1,000 meters, and our dive track today will ascend a 100-meter relief scarp. We're referring to it as Richardson Scarp, and the top of this area should be flat-lying rock. And in the process, we're hoping to find rocks, the edges of the Blake Plateau that are sticking out into the current here, and hopefully some nice solid rocky ledges for lots of biodiversity and congregations of coral and sponge communities.
Video, let's snap on this. Slightly
Looks like
red.
another cladorizid sponge in the background.
Oh, it's
And then is this a calyptogenia or some kind of bivalve?
Does look like one.
I thought it looked spongy.
Oh, is it?
I
I don't know.
At 4 or 5.
Or a scallop.
Yeah, some
It might
kind
be
of.
a
It looks
scallop.
like a bivalve to
we
me.
get lasers
Mhm.
on it, so we know how big it is.
I believe
Actually, maybe,
lasers
yeah,
are on.
maybe a scallop.
Yeah, lasers are already on.
Calyptogena, wouldn't that mean it was like,
It would
isn't
be
that
a
cold
seep. Yeah, it would be a seep invertebrate. So I don't see any other suggestions of seepage here.
And on the left, right in the middle of the screen, is a hermit crab with its legs all covered with the sediment.
Or a squat lobster, probably.
Or, yeah, sorry.
He's come in.
That's what I meant.
Relatives of hermit crabs.
Yes.
So. Another little one
Well camouflaged.
on the left.
Yep.
All right, pilot's clear and video's clear. Thanks, video.
So Sandra Brooke was wondering if it is a file shell. Anybody else think it might be a file shell?
I'll be there at 5.5
Copy that.
degrees.
If it were, she was suggesting a collection.
Try to get a different angle on it. Video, you can come back in.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
We're going to try to zoom in at a different angle. There's also one of the cladorized sponges, carnivorous sponges behind it.
Copy that.
This is definitely the first time we've seen this. Bivalve on this cruise.
We have a turn.
Sandra, does that help you with the identification?
You can come out a little bit, video.
Yeah, she said that it looks like a single valve. I don't
I'll
know
do
if
a come
that
on.
means that it's no longer alive
Maybe
and
turn to
it
starboard, Sean.
was a bivalve. I'm not sure. Maybe we'll see some more of them as we move on. And
All right, watch. Was it above or below? Watch, we're going to look at our tether for a minute. Excuse us as we...
gotcha, thanks. Yeah, I think it's coral rubble
So
when
I
we zoomed
believe
in.
there might be a positive turn. That
So the
D2
pilots are
turn
just checking to make sure that the tether is safe behind us when
clockwise.
we're approaching a steep wall. That's something we really have to keep an eye on. A wall could abrade the tether, and
Oh, so you think you turned right? You want me to turn left?
Need to turn counter.
that is something we need to avoid at all costs.
All right.
Have another
I'll go underneath and
Bathypathes
then
black
spin.
sponge there
Cool
on the
with that.
right. The
Copy.
Copy that.
reddish coral.
You're at
Alright, I got
pretty close already.
Delta Z of 20.
Seeing lots of coral rubble.
Do you want me to come up with you, or do you need
No,
to
stay there. I have auto depth in, so I can't come up any further.
Good.
Wait for me to spin.
Gonna bring my camera down and keep you into view?
All right.
We've seen a lot of coral rubble in the past several days. If you joined earlier dives with us, we were
Looks good.
beneath the Gulf Stream off the coast of Florida 3 days ago, and then off the coast of
ROV
Georgia,
average, move complete.
just above that, still underneath the Gulf Stream. And we ascended several giant mounds that were piles of coral rubble that had
That looks good. If you wanna
persisted
just,
for
get back down,
potentially
stretch it a little, and
hundreds of
co-pilot can
thousands,
look
if
back,
not million
see if
years.
it'll work its way
We
out.
don't know the ages, but several of our chat room scientist associates had discussed some cores that had gone into some mounds, not in this area, but in other areas. So the piles of rubble are ancient records of coral growth in those areas. It was directly under the Gulf Stream. And then yesterday we went to a knife-like ridge feature that
cable.
we had
Under
no
the
idea
tether.
what it was. We thought maybe it would be a
Confident.
rocky
Move
feature,
forward a
but
little
it
bit.
also turned out to be
Yeah.
a coral mound
Yeah.
Get in
that
front of
had
this camera.
probably eroded and slumped in areas, making that knife edge. We saw little evidence of that at the top, and just incredible gardens of Lophelia stony corals. So
Yeah,
hopefully if
if you
you
can use your
weren't with
Titan
us in the
too.
last few days, you'll start
If you can
seeing
get an eye on it.
images and some video clips populated on the website that our videographers are working every night to get you the most glamorous of the shots, but also the telltale photographs of each dive.
Yeah, pilot, I would just keep doing that. It's tether you can see is starting to be pulled forward.
All right.
It's still there, huh?
Yeah, I think if he pulls forward, though, it should.
Shake it out.
Yeah.
All right.
Alright.
I'll keep pushing forward. You're good.
Yeah, if you can just try to keep that in view. The turn might just have to work its way up.
Yeah.
So that's after the, so it's between Sirius and the second football.
Another cladorized carnivorous sponge on the right. And
Yeah, watchers, we just need to do a little vehicle maintenance, so we might pause for a moment.
Roger that, thanks. The pilots are still doing a bit of a check
I
on
have
the
my
ROV.
main camera on the
In the
turn.
meantime, we
Yeah.
have another Chaseon crab
Looks
and
good.
a couple more Anthomastus or pseudo-Anthomastus with the red ball-shaped sponges or corals in the middle, octocorals.
And a little ledge outcropping here.
Looks like the coral rubble is picking up in quantity. And we're getting quite a bit steeper.
What's that?
That looks like a chrysogorgid in the middle there. Maybe we can take a closer look at
Yeah,
it.
video we can snap on Chris.
Looks like 3 in a row. Middle, left, and lower right. And again, these have, looks like a Europtychus chirostylid squat lobster. And we've seen that association before on this cruise several times. Yep, and Scott France says, looks like Chrysogorgia times 3.
Video, I'm going to try to get you
We
a
also have it
more
up there.
So
stable
that's a
shot of this
common
in just a second
associate
here.
of Chrysogorgia.
Yep.
All right.
And we see a crinoid attached to the rock on the left, that star-shaped with fronds. Crinoids are
Sean, when you set up,
members
turn
of
V
the
to report or
Echinodermata
start?
phylum and related to sea stars and brittle stars,
Scott
sea
France.
cucumbers.
Yep.
Go ahead.
Oh, Scott France pointed out that there might be another associate in the top right, a little red something. I don't know if that's an amphipod or a small juvenile squat lobster. It could be. Yeah, it looks more like a squat lobster, actually. A little bit hard to tell, but
It's a nice little yellow sponge in the background also. The pilots are consulting right now. They have some vehicle maintenance to conduct, so we're just having the ability to zoom in and out and pan up and down rather than right and left at this point until the pilots are re-engaged. So our video lead is working on this right now.
that looks like a plumarella. Octocoral in the background. And Scott France said that the larger crab that we were looking at on the chirostylid, just on the lower portion of your screen, looked like it might have had some eggs that it's carrying in the underneath the abdomen. It definitely looks like a branch of Lophelia skeleton on the upper right side. And it looks like another chirostylid crab in the Chrysogorgia in the back left. Or maybe Oh, what is that? No, that's a shrimp. That's a shrimp and the other chrysogorgid, I believe. I don't know. We have a strange look at it here. But it looks like a shrimp to me. Which is an atypical associate for this coral. Yep, it's a shrimp. Interesting.
But you can come wide.
And it looks like some more plumarella, possibly octocorals on the right. And this has got to be the most abundant place we've seen for these carnivorous sponges. I think this is the 5th or 6th one we've seen.
I don't think of a sponge as being carnivorous.
You want me to do that, Pilot? You want me to spin
It's
around?
interesting.
Yeah.
They just wait for their prey to come to them, I guess.
Right. Move it around and look
They certainly can't go anywhere.
Right. Then they snag them with little hook-like, kind of Velcro-y hooks.
So what is their food? The copepods, or can they do amphipods? Or
I imagine any of those types of small crustaceans or other organisms. One of the shrimp associates that was on one of the corals that we collected yesterday, tiny little shrimp, we barely were able to see it, and we put it under the microscope, and it was an adult female with 3 eggs that were green. The whole shrimp was maybe, I don't know, 3 millimeters. Yeah, something like that. But it was obviously an adult female, so again, the more you look, the more you might find.
It's coming off serious
And both Scott France and Tammy Frank have seen shrimp with Chrysogorgia previously, but this looked like a different species of shrimps than they've seen on it in the past. And in the Gulf of Mexico, they see a shrimp called Bathypalmanella on Chrysogorgids.
Coming up a little bit, Pilot.
All right, co-pilot, we're going to turn right. All right, watch this. We're going to turn around the other way. We'll be back with you in a minute.
Roger that. Again, the pilots are checking on the tether and making sure we can safely approach this scarp. And so we're just going to back away for a minute, and we'll be right back at it. We have a bit less surface current than we did yesterday, about a little under a knot and a half of current, and the seas have laid down a bit since yesterday, but there's still a lot of different moving parts here, the ship versus the ROVs. So we're checking out the tether and how it's streaming up to Sirius behind us, behind the D2.
And you can always flip to the camera 2 to get a view from Sirius of the ROV. It's often very interesting, a view. You can see the rock walls or the coral communities, whatever we're viewing out of the high definition camera from the Deep Discoverer. But it's always fun to see the context of the seascape from the Sirius point of view.
You want me to come up?
That was really dramatic yesterday when we were on the top of that ridge with all the Lophelia colonies. And you could just see all of the white Lophelia stretching out in front of D2.
All right, you watch the loop, and I'll stretch it out a little bit. We'll see if it shakes itself out.
It's layers, looks like.
Yeah. All right. Hear that?
So I'll go to starboard?
Yeah, I'll stay right here and you can flip around.
All right, swinging to starboard.
I think what they're trying to do is get rid of the loop in the tether. So now Sirius is doing its own dance to try to get that loop out. If that loop were to become taut, it could severely impair communication and power.
Where'd she go? All right. You want me to come up now? If I come up and he goes forward, we should be... All right.
Okay.
Coming up.
Just make sure you follow it with the tighter rocks. Oh, there it goes. Just undid. But there might still be something strange going on here. So we might still have a turn in. But let's just stretch it out since it's undone.
Good.
Looks like they're doing fine.
I'm going to swim back around and get D2 in view.
Yeah.
I got the tether on tighten.
Okay.
Something like your garden hose getting pinched.
You're at a minus turn like we were thinking the loop's at. Right? Yeah.
When cables get pinched like that, it's referred to as a hockle, which I did not know until I worked with the Ocean Observatory Initiative and the University of Washington, and we were laying hundreds of kilometers of cable. And we had a hockle.
All right, Roch, we're back with you.
Great.
We got the tether situation sorted out, so if you'd like to zoom in stuff.
Yeah, while we were drifting a little bit, we saw some layers of rock to the left, so maybe we could zoom out and see if, I'm sorry, to the right. I don't know where they are relative to now. They were in this field of view on the right.
Okay. I'll try to find them.
There were very fine layers. It looked like a little stair step.
Looks like another Chonax there.
Who is that?
Maybe between the rocks. And then a little piece of Lophelia, maybe our first live scleractinian coral. Oh, and a little sea star in the lower left.
Sometimes it's good to pan out.
Yeah.
Yeah, watch it. I think the sediment layers might be
there.
Right here.
Okay, yeah.
Oh, and another Chonax.
Wow.
Yeah, that's great.
I don't think we've ever seen 3 on a dive.
Amazed at how common those are here.
All right, pilots.
Or at least today's dive.
You want 20 meters?
Yeah.
Yep.
Great.
That's a great view.
And then over on
some
the
of
left is that
the
bunch of those
bryozoans.
bryozoans, yeah,
Go ahead, Nav.
in like in an arc.
I'm glad we
I'm
got a
ready.
sample of those.
Yeah, they're
These are really cool, like
20
terraces.
meters, bearing
Yeah, that's a
280,
beautiful
speed
view
decimal
of
2.
just multiple layers of sediments that have been deposited over thousands of years that have stacked up. So this is very different from the mounds that we saw before, even though the surface looks very similar with the coral rubble. Here the base of the coral is, instead of old coral, it's the rocks, which is what we were expecting and hoping to find because of this very steep wall.
ROV nav bridge, move initiated.
But that coral on the left, did you guys get a
That's
look
great.
at that?
Thank
and
you,
see what
Pilot.
it is?
Yeah, we could,
no, I did not.
we could snap out this coral video. Just the one you were talking about, watch leads?
Yep, that's
Okay.
it.
Yeah.
It looks like the plumarella
plumarella.
again, and
With lots of associates.
yeah, I think that might be a hermit crab. Shrimp maybe in the lower left, not on the coral.
Getting closer video.
It's a nice Cibellid worm on the upper left. Is it Cibellid? I can't remember.
Yeah, I think so. Well,
It's like the horseshoe shape, though. So then I think it's
Okay.
not a Cibellid.
the
Is it a
serpulid
Phoronid?
or
No.
serpulid.
I didn't think the Serpulids had the...
Yeah, they usually have the white.
Yeah, I usually think of them like the white spiraling tube encrusting on the top of rock, not coming out like that, but...
Yeah, you can see it's definitely a hermit crab on the plumarella, and maybe an anemone.
Yeah, I was just noticing the upper part.
Yeah.
Oh, I was talking about the one on the left. But yeah, then the white one is Serpulid. See this one? That's what I was wondering.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, we're jumping around about what's on the coral and what's behind the coral. It's confusing. It seems odd to have an anemone on the coral, or is that not? Is that not weird?
I've seen it before,
I
but
mean,
it's usually in a more dead part of the skeleton. This
Yeah,
looks
that's-
like a
it's like-
fairly lively part, so that is
Right in the middle.
kind of unusual. Yeah. And Scott Trent says
All right,
it's
video.
not uncommon for anemones to be on corals.
Okay. Thank you, pilot.
Yeah.
More of the bryozoan that we collected one of. Those are quite common here, and we haven't seen them
Yeah,
anyplace else.
Yeah.
I always wonder what we're missing that's right out of our lights. You know, we go up
for
a
sure.
swath like this, and what might be lurking just left or right out of our lights.
I think about that a lot in the water column when most,
Yeah.
like when everything is mobile, as
Uh-huh.
opposed to here where a lot of it's sessile. Yeah. There's another of the Chonax, I think, swimming,
Oh,
waddling, moving.
yeah. Waddling.
Oh, yeah. But you can come in partial.
Now it's going to stop, so we can't see it. Oh,
Come in.
okay, so this fish, Chonax, the bryozoans, the cladorizin sponges, those are like the three super common things on today's dive that we haven't seen a ton of
Right.
other days.
Yeah, the bryozoan and the clatorized sponge we
for
haven't seen
sure.
at all.
Yeah.
So. And then we've only seen one other of these the whole expedition, I think. So
Yeah.
Okay, video.
Our pilot's ready for another move.
Yeah.
Ready when you are.
Copy that. I'll put another 20 meters.
Although,
Go ahead
correct
now.
me if I'm wrong, I've missed a lot of
Sure.
the dives because I'm got my head in front of the monitor managing
20
the
meters,
data.
rank
But
280, speed decimal 2.
seems like we haven't had that many dives at this particular depth range.
Copa, well, he
Had
stretched it out
deeper
to try to
and
find the
slightly shallower.
yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Tether
So the
again.
combination of the depth
Yeah.
and then
See
like
if
the
just
type
to
of
double check.
feature that we're on right now. So maybe that's why we're seeing these.
ROV nav bridge, move initiated.
Oh, and the Afrocalistes, like, is that up on the upper left? Is
Yeah,
that what the name of that one?
I'm not sure because this one
Or-
is stalked.
Oh, right.
And
Okay.
the Afrocalistes
Keep an
I
eye
don't
on
think
Titan,
is
Maybe
stalked.
we should
With
take a
pilot
look at
permission, we could
at one of these then.
Real quick with Sirius main HD.
Yeah, you can do that.
There's also a fish on the right.
It's black, small black fish.
We might want to get that
Hey,
before
let's
he
snap on small
departs.
fish.
Huh.
Yeah.
Oh, that's like an Antimora. Which
Antimora?
is I think. It looks like a juvenile, but
The bryozoan for scale.
yes, it's definitely small.
Nice, that looks good.
That looks good to me.
Yeah, it looks great. Thank you.
Next video.
A squat lobster up
But
there as
related
well.
to rat tails, or maybe it is a rat tail, but without the rat tail.
You can tell
Anyway,
we
I
don't
think
have
it's
any real ichthyologists here.
I think they are in the larger group that includes true rat tails. But anyway.
Okay, video coming partial. Yeah, hold there.
So this sponge just looks similar to one we've been seeing, we've been calling Afrocalistes, but the Afrocalistes doesn't have a stalk. I don't know if that's so then it's a totally different sponge, or if sometimes they have a stalk and sometimes they don't.
I'm not sure.
But it is a type of glass sponge, correct?
Yep.
I'd be there at 50 degrees.
With a little baby crinoid
Copy that.
and possibly a squat lobster on the bottom left.
Yeah.
And there you can see how it's using the coral rubble to attach itself to.
Okay, video.
Coral rubble is
That's
important
clear.
substrate for many, many organisms.
And another Bathy Pathies here.
That's beautiful.
All right, come wide video. All right.
Another Chrysogorgid in the coming into the center of the screen now.
Video snap on Chrysogorgia.
See if this has a shrimp or a squat lobster associate.
It's almost guaranteed there's somebody there, isn't
Right.
it?
Shrimp.
Another shrimp.
Shrimp. Huh. Looks like a similar shrimp to the one that we saw before.
Was it Tammy and Scott saying that they see this type of shrimp in Chrysogorgids in the Gulf of Mexico, or am I thinking of some other?
No, that was the conversation, but it wasn't this shrimp. They have seen a shrimp,
Oh, okay.
but
yeah.
not this shrimp. So
Sean, do you think the setup
Got it.
is from me?
ROV nav
At
bridge,
least that
move
was my
complete.
There's no way,
memory
right?
of that conversation.
I just think it's a lot of dust and
Yeah, we have a lot of snow up here.
currently
Yeah.
picking up.
I'm
Yeah, there's a lot of marine snow in the water
Yeah.
column today. We noticed that
I'd be
before
impressed
we
if
reached the
you
bottom.
were causing all that.
Is that a geodia?
Yeah, I
It
can't
looks
get out
like
of
a
it.
geodia.
Something
A
similar-ish?
sponge.